Our agenda under items for consideration, we'll move item H, policy service, up to make it A plus. Right before A. So we'll move H up so that our guest can make a presentation and then we'll be able to get on the road back to Fulton. So make that adjustment to the agenda. You have before you consent agenda. Any questions, any concerns on the consent agenda? Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Ann, second by Doug. All in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, raise your right hand. Motion carries. All right. Non-action reports. Dr. Robinson.
Yeah, construction. Things are moving along. Really, there's only 2 projects we're kind of really working on. They're just almost finished with everything up in the ag shop, so I'm just kind of down to 2 projects. One is the wrestling room, which really our construction's not having a whole lot to do with now. That's just now our company putting in all of our new mats for the wrestling room and all of that. And then the Performing Arts Center. But the wrestling room is getting very, very close. I was in there last night. We were probably 80% with all the mats on the walls. I'm not sure if they
probably 95 now.
95 now? Yeah. Okay. I think the only thing we were waiting on was some of the places where we had outlets, and they were just cutting those pieces in and doing some things. It looked like that was pretty close.
No roof leaking issues, is there?
We've had a couple little holes in there. I mean, that wasn't part of the bid to put a new roof on, so I think we're trying to find the pinholes that we've had before we get in there. I think we found most. Yeah. That's something we'll probably have to look at going forward, is what we're going to do with that roof, whether we put sealant on it or do something going forward, because we're going to have to protect the investment we're putting in there.
So we're still on target to get the mats out of CIS after Christmas?
I'd say we're pretty darn close to that, yeah. So, yeah. Because right now all the wall mats are up, we have the base floor down, and then the only thing left will be we'll have almost like a protection type mat that'll come in. It's going to be about 1 inch thick. They'll put that down, and then they'll come in and put the wrestling mats on top of it. So then we'll be ready to go in that room. We'll be good to go for the wrestling. It's probably going to be much after wrestling season into the winter, because after that we're going to try to keep the plumber pretty well in the theater and getting all the other projects caught up on any plumbing. We still got to run a water line up from the parking lot up to Chestnut, and so we'll probably pull out of there, and the locker rooms are probably going to be finished at a later time. So, but we'll have to take a tour sometime and look, because the new room looks really, it's almost unrecognizable from what it was before when it was the ag shop, and it's going to be nice. And I think everybody's kind of excited. And I talked with Jake Barton not too long ago, because he's running the youth wrestling club, and I think they're excited about getting in the room, and I think even having them in intermediate school, he says, trying to curtail 4 and 5-year-olds from running all over the building and everywhere else, and there you've got one space. So
this might be a silly question. Are they going to move the mats to the spot when the meets here, or will the meets be in?
No, the meets will still be in the high school gym,
okay.
as much as we can. I mean, we had last Tuesday night, we used every gym. We had wrestling at CIS. We had 6 games of basketball with Lawson in the middle school and the high school. So we had, yeah, you didn't park with anywhere close. It looked like a graduation ceremony with the pep band and everything. I mean, we had parking all the way over to Parkview, so people parked.
In regards to that,
yeah.
Did we break fire compliance at the intermediate school with the amount of people that were in there?
We probably were pretty close. So
it was crazy.
There was a lot.
There wasn't even enough room for the wrestlers. They were lined up.
There was a lot of people, and we've done duels or quads over there before, and I think it probably it was good for the crowd. It was good for the kids, but we had 4 programs that brought almost 4 full sets of kids plus girls.
Yeah.
So we, in years past, when we've ever done something, it's usually just been boys or girls, and usually there's, it's not near. I mean, when we had Chillicothe had a full team, Odessa had a full team, we have full teams. It was.
Fortunately, Central did not.
Fortunately, yeah, it was Central or Center. Yeah.
Center.
Yeah, it was probably pretty crowded in there. I mean, I was there for a little while, and I know it was wall to wall. So It was, so.
And Dr. Robinson, the high school office, will that shift happen over the holiday?
I'm hoping so. We're waiting on some of the camera stuff so that we can put the buzzer entry system in so that we don't have Maggie right now trying to get up every time and answer the front door. And so really that's it. I mean, I think we had some water leakage in there at one point in time. We had some cabinetry get damaged in the nurse's office. We've got that replaced and did all that. And really that's all we're waiting on is the new video camera system, and then we should be able to do that, and hopefully that'll happen over the break. The Performing Arts Center is rolling along. We've dropped off all of our, I'd say rock, but it is rock. Dropped off all our decorative rock for the outside of the theater, like when you walk in the foyer area, and then inside as well. There's a couple of insets in the theater itself, so they dropped all that off to start doing that work. And I would imagine here over Christmas they're going to start doing the grade work. I mean, they'll be at that point in time to start doing the grade work and get the concrete poured for it. So,
Dr. Robinson, what's the progress as far as who is going to be running the Performing Arts Center? And
well, I've got a theater manager position that I've kind of pretty much stole from Liberty. I've worked with I can't think of Aaron's last name.
Money.
Aaron Money, and actually Mr. Fisher put me in touch with him. And so I've had a couple of conversations with him. He's kind of sent our theater manager position out, and that's something that I'll probably post when we get back after Christmas to see who may be interested in doing that. And we'll probably do some interviews and have somebody ready to go in January, kind of before we get kind of the whole theater up and going. Because right now I think we're probably going to have to move our deadline from middle of January to end of January is when I think we're pretty hopeful, although I think last time my construction committee can remember, I believe all of our theater seats show up Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're at that point. We might not have all the cement work done, but 635 seats will be arriving on Thursday. Maybe in a blizzard, maybe not. We'll see. So, see what happens. But
How many are in Goodrich?
out here, maybe 400.
4 and some change, something like that.
420, but by the time you take out broken seats, you're probably at maybe 400. So you're 1.5 times bigger, considerably better.
One time the scouts were planning on using that, have we put them?
They are still going to use our facilities on the 14th, but they won't be able to obviously use the theater and stuff. They'll have to use the middle school gym, the high school gym like we've done in the past. It's been a few years since we held that conclave or whatever they call it, but I'm excited they're back. I mean, like I said, I think it's great for our community and those kids, and I came for last year just to kind of, or not last year, whenever it was, probably pre-COVID, truthfully. But I mean, we had scout groups from Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas, Arkansas, Iowa. We had a ton of states. I think there was even a group that came up from Texas that came to Cameron. So,
And then, Dr. Robinson, I know we've talked about this in our construction meeting, but do we have a plan to change the formal address of the high school?
it will be. I think we're going to. I've talked to Mr. Urban quite a bit about it. I think we're going to let it roll for the rest of this year,
Okay.
and then over the summer we'll have to change that with B.E.S.T, and then we'll change the milling address. So we'll be quite a monopoly board with 3 properties on Park Avenue. So, yeah, I think we'll probably let it roll and just continue that, and then kind of that way it'll give the Postal Service some time to get that. We'll change it with B.E.S.T, and then that will become our new formal address. Will be whatever address they give us for that down there, and then everything else will start going there. But I think we're going to just let it kind of roll for the rest of the semester. It's going to probably be too confusing. We're still going to fight it over the summer, but I think it might just be easier than trying to. We're already making a lot of changes, so that's really it. Any questions on it? Like I said, I think we're progressing. It looks like it's slow, but
Paint shop's completely.
I think we've got a little bit of vent work in there, and I don't know if they've got the sink in yet, but they.
As of last week, I haven't been in this week yet. It wasn't in yet.
We were waiting on the sink, and that's again plumbing, and that seems to be our slowdown right now.
But the upstairs bathrooms are working.
Upstairs bathrooms are working,
They're up and
hot water, I mean, all those things are open and good, and so, yeah.
Fax.
Fax
Yeah,
is all set
everything.
up. I think the only one that maybe not was set up was maybe the gas stove. I think we had 3 of the electric set up, and then we have a gas electric stove, and I don't know if that gas was.
I don't know if the lines were ever or have been put in yet.
Yeah, I don't know if that was actually hooked up yet. So I think other than that, yes, I mean, the industrial freezers, everything else, washer, dryer, all that stuff is all functioning. And I think she's doing quite a few lessons. I mean, I know purchase orders and stuff I'm getting. I know she's buying supplies, so. We're buying food.
Yeah.
That's all I have, guys.
All right. Next item on the agenda is our administrative reports. Dr. Mefford?
Just a couple things. I shared with you some information from the B.E.S.T school report card. Now that you've had time to go in and peruse those pages, but the school report card is different than our APR. The APR is our annual performance report, and you should be receiving lots of that, I could say, in the next few weeks. But the school report card just shares some information just regarding a lot of data and statistics. A couple things that I did want to mention. I had noted our free reduced lunch numbers. Those have increased, but they actually increased from 36.9% of our student population qualifying for free and reduced in 21 to 39.4%. I think those numbers are still very low. We're still struggling with families filling out the lunch forms. I know Donna Frazier, our food service director, has been reaching out to any family that has outstanding balance or negative balances to see if she can assist them. But due to the fact that everyone, 100% of the people, receive free breakfast and lunch for the past 2 years, they are no longer in the habit of filling those out. And so we are working, because we do know that there are populations out there that still would qualify. We just need to get them to fill out the forms. Our attendance rates, as you can tell, we're still struggling, but as of December, this month, district-wide, we're sitting at 78.7%, so we're kind of on the rise from where we were last year, so we hope to continue with that. Another point of interest, I think the district increased its total average teaching salary from $48,000 to $51,445. We are getting closer to the state minimum salary. So I think that's a positive thing, and we're moving in the right direction. We are very competitive with a lot of schools surrounding us and statewide. And then the growth, I just wanted to make mention of the growth. So although our ELA and our science scores continue to be lower, we did make those gains in math and social studies. Social studies was a great amount of gains. So, and that's the percentage of students scoring in advanced and proficient on either the grade level assessment or the end of course exam. So those were positive things. I did not write information regarding the NAEP. The NAEP is the National Assessment of Educational Programs, and the State Board of Education actually recently reviewed those scores. The NAEP is given to just sampling of schools nationwide. 4th and 8th grade students. I want to say Missouri had about 1,800 students that they tested for 4th grade math and 4th grade ELA, and then the 8th grade math and ELA. Of course, like every other assessment, our scores are down. Jesse has some concerns, but is working on some plans to provide some remedial or some guidance for school districts. As I mentioned, nationwide, though, the scores are down, and that's just due to COVID and the loss of learning. So the largest, I guess, deficiency or deterioration of scores occurred in the 8th grade math, and from 2019 to 2022, that fell 9 points, so that was the largest loss. Usually the NAEP is given every 2 years, but due to COVID, it wasn't given in 21. They gave it in 2019 and then again in 2022. So, any questions?
Yes. I actually have a couple. Obviously, attendance is a big topic, and I don't know if they want to do this now, but maybe during each of the administrators' report, Could you share what your process is with, when you have absent students that are missing more than 90%? Ms. Ormsby put it on her report of a little bit of what what they've been doing, but I'm curious, what's that process look like? Who's doing it? If you need more help in following up, are kids falling through the gaps? I mean, I just want to know, I'm just curious of what that whole process looks like and how, if like I said, if anything's falling through the gaps.
And I can let them address each individual building. We have the same policies or procedures. We make phone calls. If the parent does not call in, they receive an automated phone call. If no one answers that phone call, then physically we're making phone calls. When we get to a certain point of days missed, we send letters, notifications of letters. If they extend to, 8 to 10 days, we're involving, sharing information with the juvenile officer. So each building has separate policies in place. And again, it's not for those kids that are sick. Kids get sick, we don't want them here. These are for those kiddos that are just gone for no reason. Parents don't call, they're gone for several days. The amount of instruction that those students are missing is just astronomical, and it takes so long. I mean, we have outstanding teachers, but they cannot make up all those gaps. When a kid's gone for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, they're not getting that classroom instruction.
I think I'm just curious, is that, like at Parkview, is that Leanne making that phone call, or is that Miss Ormsby or Mrs. Riley making those phone calls? And then how frequently, are you seeing things like when she said they did face-to-face meetings? Are they seeing results from having those meetings or those phone calls? Ms. Crawford's shaking her head. No.
I'll let them address that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, each building I think handles it differently. But yeah,
we're trying.
Monthly, we meet with social services, juvenile officers, kind of share our concerns. They kind of help us out in that area. And again, it's not those kiddos that are sick. It's those kiddos that are missing just to be missed.
Do you get much response from parents at all? Do they understand the importance? I mean, I know you guys are trying, and I think at some point we need the parents to understand that this is their responsibility to get their student to school, and that we are graded by the state on their child's attendance. I think sometimes they don't realize that that's more than them just not getting their kid. The whole district is graded on that as well. And I'm sure you guys are communicating that, but I guess since we have a public access right now, I cannot stress enough to our community that we need your students attending in person, because our school is graded on that at the state level of your kids here. So vacations need to go when kids are scheduled for breaks, not during the school week. And doctor's appointments, if you can at all, need to be put after school. And, really try your best to get your kiddo here, unless they're sick.
Correct.
And we are very clear about that.
Absolutely.
But I know sometimes I think we kind of let parents, we got in this COVID mind, and we're back to the way it was before, that we need your kiddo in their seat, and we are graded on that at the state level.
Well, and like I said, the student learning, the learning loss. I mean, every day that the student is not sitting in the chair is another day that we don't have opportunity to kind of fill in those holes. And so not only fill in those holes, but we have to continue.
Right.
And so those students, very quickly they're those students that become frustrated because they're falling below their peers. They struggle with reading, they struggle with math, and I mean, then it just creates, a snowball effect. So. But I'll let the...
and I don't mean to not throw her under the bus, but bring up Ms. Ormsby again, but I don't know if you all saw the email that she attached to her report. And in it, she talks about the importance of attendance and everything, which I think is great. I almost think that it might be more powerful if we put the numbers in there. Can you do that? Can we put... hey, this is our current rate of, we have, as you say, a goal as a district. Currently, this is where your preschool at. Currently, this is,
we put it in the individual letters that are sent home, so they know specifically this is how many days you've missed, and try to make it individualized. But I understand what you're saying.
On the sickness, I know when we had the COVID you know, there was like a time period and you had to stay out and you had to be fever-free. Are we still, is that still something that we're pushing out there in terms of like, don't come back until fever-free
24 hours without the use of, you know,
right.
fever-reducing medications.
And that was pre-COVID policy as well.
Yeah.
The same, yeah.
Would it be fair to suggest that, as Stacy said, and to maybe this becomes just a full-on, I know we talk about it among ourselves, but just a full-on focus to the community, maybe through radio, newspaper. We've got to get your kids back in school.
Each building is doing some type of incentive to make that happen. I think the principals are sending out newsletters or information. Every month when I meet with the assistant principals, that's on our agenda. Every month we talk about where are we at with attendance and what can we do and how can we motivate and, you know, what's the cause. And so we talk a lot about engaging students. I mean, that's a problem too. You know, students don't want to come to school because they're bored or they just don't like it. And so how can we engage our students and what can we do from that side?
Well, I would imagine that there are some, you know, mental health issues as well that keep kids home.
Yeah. Do we have data around the reasons? Do we collect that to where we could track it and see trends? And if we don't, maybe could we ask that in a survey? You know, like if your kid's gone, do you take them out for vacation? Do you take them out for?
Sorry, no. I just when they call in, usually, oh, they don't feel good, or it's very a blanket statement. We don't ask, you know, a lot of details, but
We ask if they're sick. We ask if, you know, we ask for the
so
reason.
it's going to be gone today. Oh, are they sick? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
We do keep track of students that call in for illnesses. So we do track that, but those parents that never call in, that we can't get a hold of, we don't have data on that. I do know, and I don't know if this building still do that, but we have a registered nurse in the building. So if you're debating, you know, send your child in. If they don't have a fever, send them in. The nurse can check on them, you know, and if they're ill, they can be sent home. But
do doctor's notes get tracked? I mean, is that taken into account when we're calculating the attendance? Is that excused, or I just don't know.
The state of Missouri, if you're not in your seat, it doesn't
Doesn't
matter.
count
It could
no matter
be a funeral, it could be a sickness, it could be you had to go to a graduation. They do not care. If your tush is not in the seat, you're not counted.
Now, like at the high school level, we take that into consideration when it comes to like if you're absent so many for credits. We take that into consideration on doctor's notes, whether you're out of town for a graduation or a funeral. All of that goes into that, but their attendance still gets docked.
And we have, I know, I think everybody's immunity is different. Like we've been hit hard with sickness again between COVID and both A and B flu, from what I understand, strep throat. So I think things that has impacted, I think, some of that.
and teachers too. I mean, teachers and staff, you know, we're fighting it everywhere. So, like I said, it's not about if you're sick, you're sick. It's not about that. It's about those that just, there's not a reason. You know, we want to get them in the building to get them, you know, the instruction that they need for sure. So,
One positive thing I wanted to note on your report that I think it's great that teachers in our district are nearly 3 percentage points higher than the state average getting their advanced degrees.
I wrote that.
Yay for us.
yeah, definitely.
What was this Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery?
That's the ASVAB test that we give to our juniors every year. When we receive our APR, the APR has a section, College and Career Readiness, that we receive points. If the students score high on the ASVAB, we receive a certain amount of points. Our students taking the ACT, if they score high on the ACT, we receive a certain amount of points. And then those college and career readiness exams that they take through ag or vocational courses, we receive points towards that. So that's just a piece that's considered part of the APR calculations, and that's just traditionally we have all juniors take that. You know, if they score well. Go ahead.
Well, it just kind of gives an aptitude for somebody who might be suited in the military. I know Johnny, with his experience with the National Guard, probably could talk a lot more about that, but, you know, recruiters will look at that score and better, am I right, better dictate maybe an area that a student would succeed in if they're gonna go military-wise, so.
Right. It does give like an interest inventory.
Okay.
But it helps, you know, not accommodate, but our students that are wanting to go to the military, that gives them an opportunity to test. If they score high enough, yeah, they would go in on a higher level with enlisting, so. But it's just another piece that we collect data on, that Desi is part of that APR, that annual performance report, that's used as part of its calculation. So we try to have as many data as possible. I think it's serious too.
Anything else? Thank you.
Let's go on, couple celebrations. We had, right after our last board meeting, that Tuesday, and I know there were some of you in attendance, we had our patriotic concert. Mr. Jennings, Mr. Carter, shout out to Ms. Slagle and all their students. Probably arguably one of the coolest things that I've witnessed since I've been here 10 years. So being a part of that, I've always heard about it, but being in other buildings, very, very cool, very powerful. We had our college and career fair December 2nd. Had over 50 representatives from different universities, state colleges, and then obviously different career paths. Shout out to Mrs. Webb and our counseling department for getting that organized. Went very well. And then we just finished up NDBA testing, so we will be looking at those reports coming back off Christmas break and through our department meetings. And kind of to piggyback off your question, we do utilize Officer Palmer, either whether it's I'm going on home visits. We usually are going on those if it's multiple days and we haven't made contact, just kind of doing a wellness check on the child. Mr. Lanigan, he has a Google document that he tracks. He downloads a report, puts it in, and it tells you exactly 8.2 days, 7.6 days. So he tracks it all the way down to, basically the minute. And he's having conversations, unfortunately, when a kid brings a doctor's note. Yes, it's excused, but there's not a lot that, unfortunately, we can do about that. But we are looking at doing kind of what we started at CIS last year, with that Distinguished Dragons and attendance being a part of that piece. So that's going to be an incentive that we start third quarter. So,
If I could, on your office referrals and those things, do you feel as if you're, the culture and tone in the building, is this improving? Are you feeling good about?
I feel so. I hear that, and there's structure, and I don't know if that's a good thing, a bad thing, but a lot of it.
It's a good thing.
Well, from a 15 to 18-year-old eyes, they don't feel that way, but a lot of it. I know this last month where we were coming off Thanksgiving break and we were having repeated cell phone issues. So we are still battling that. As a whole, not a lot, but it's the repeat offenders. So a lot of those office referrals are, if it's a first-time deal, it goes in as a minor, but if it's a second, third, fourth, etc., it goes in as an office referral. So a bulk of those were those.
But overall, still the response to the cell phone policy is, we don't like it, but we get it.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll see coming back in January. I'm sure there'll be some growing pains, but not.
Are the students coming back after you go visit them? Like
On
if
the
you
home
or
visits, yes. And some of I have signed homeschool papers, so we've gone back and delivered those. But some they're battling mental health, unfortunately. Some have gone virtual through launch. So
on the building improvement plan document, and this is maybe more of a broad comment just for all the buildings, but what I would like to see is you've got really good action steps to support the goals, but we don't have any data or detail around that. So I think it'd be really helpful to see, for example, you've got Dragon Time content focus every 3 weeks. Just more, what does that mean? Like how many students are impacted, what's being done, just whatever data is around that, because the action steps are there, but I don't see what's the result of what we're doing. Yeah. So just pretty uniformly across all of the building improvement plans, I think that would be a good addition. I think I saw it in maybe the Parkview had some information around the action steps a little bit more, but just are our action steps moving us towards the goal, I guess is what I'm looking for.
Anything else? While you're there, any questions on the activities report that's in your packet?
I have one. I noticed that on the FFA report that Carissa Studel is going to the state fall speaking competition in January, and maybe if you would want to broach the subject with her and see if she would like to perhaps present to the board as kind of a student highlight.
I can mention something to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
See if she would be interested.
Yeah.
Cool.
If not even maybe like the February.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'll let her pick.
Yeah. Since the competition's in January, I wasn't sure where that fell,
Yeah.
but if she needed
I was
practice, she
thinking
could practice on
probably more
us.
February would probably be.
Sure.
Yeah, but she'll have forgotten it by February, so maybe.
I won't let her.
Just to piggyback on my prior comment, there are several that there's nothing, and I know they're doing stuff. And do we have a requirement that they provide a report?
We don't have a requirement, but Matt and Christy put that out to each one of them every time.
I think
so.
it would be useful to see, and actually, maybe to say, I would be interested in how many kids are doing this activity, what's your participation rate, like how many activities are we doing, and what's our, because we spend money on these, and so I think, if we've got 2 kids doing an activity and we're paying a stipend to a teacher for being the sponsor, that would be good information to know. If we have that, and then we have, a need for another sponsor, 2 sponsors in one activity, we have 100 kids. I think that would be good to be able to track. So,
Maybe even to piggyback on that, having received that request, sometimes, and you're just like, oh yeah, I gotta get that. And then, the busier you are, the less likely
Sure.
you are to get that turned in. Maybe there's like a form that just
Right.
says.
a little more uniform and,
Yeah.
just to provide some structure to when they're reporting back so they know what it is. Because not everyone's knows how to write down, but if you provide them a form, that might help too. But I would be interested just to see what's our return, if you can put a return on the activities we're doing.
Yeah.
I would also comment that I was really pleased. I know that this could be a slippery slope, but to see the drama department tackling mental health awareness with their spring production.
Well, we had 2 students for their star event for FCCLA. They had organized a mental health, a company coming in, or I say a company, an organization, a nonprofit coming in today, and had a couple of the gals get sick, and so we're going to postpone until January.
Yeah.
So.
Just, I think when kids support other kids that are struggling, that means more than anything we adults can do. So, yay.
And I've really enjoyed or liked seeing that sports marketing, putting all those
That's pretty cool.
banners or the visuals on Facebook. I think that's great. And then I know it's Miss Simpson again, but this FTA, the Future Teachers Association, or second guess, is that meeting, is that all 8th graders, or is Miss McDaniel hand selecting certain 8th graders?
It's whoever wants to participate. That was my understanding.
I think that should be highly promoted and,
Yeah.
encouraged.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thanks, sir. Middle school, Mr. Stickle.
Just CVMS students, more artwork on display, YMCA and Cameron for the months of December, January. Peyton Paville, Haley Lewis, Logan Thomas, Aiden Bailey, and Ireland Williams all are going to have work on display there. We had our Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, December 7th. We had 62 veterans in attendance, and it was and that were recognized. Our students and staff for their contributions did awesome. I was really proud of what they did and honoring those veterans that came. And it was a great event. The high school choir participated, middle school choir, middle school and high school bands performed. 7 Habits team did an excellent job introducing our speakers and our performers. And our custodial and kitchen staff had the building set up and ready to go. It looked great. They were organized. And a huge shout out goes to our social studies department, Lindsay Baichula, Squirdoff, and Gracie Wallace, who do a lot of the work in setting that up. I had to do very little, so that was awesome. They really, it's, you know, they've been doing it for years, and they've got it figured out and sorted out, and it was well run. They did an awesome job. Our discipline referrals are down 15% from last year at this time, and then just total overall positive student and parent contacts from postcards, phone calls, emails, or our Leader and Me referrals was at 230 for this last month. So 230 was a big number, and that was awesome. I know I had at least one team that they did an individual card to each kid about what they were thankful for each of them. I think that was our 7th grade team, so I thought that was a great idea. And so they made sure to do that. So we had a lot of positive contacts in that regard with parents and with students. So that was a big one. A couple shout outs. I do want to give a shout out to Ms. Ormsby for helping us cover middle school events this winter. We got a lot of events going for just a couple of us, so that was extremely helpful for us. Tanya Boyle helped out a little bit too, and then also a shout out to Dr. Medford for her research and planning and just steadfast effort in her preparation for our CSIP. I know that takes a lot of work, and she has to stay on top of all of us and organize us, so I appreciate her doing that as well. And then one other thing we're doing, afternoons is generally when we see a tick in our discipline, kind of goes up in the afternoon, so something that we're starting to try. We've tried it a couple of times, and we'll do it this week, is we're doing positive messages in the afternoon after the 6-hour party, our tardy bell rings. We're doing either positive messages or inspirational stories about overcoming adversity, just to kind of refocus our kids for the second half of the day. Tomorrow's going to be on John Stephen Akwari from Tanzania. So if you want to hear about that guy, I'll tell you about him a little later. But it's a good story about a marathon runner in 1968. It's just about perseverance and commitment. So that's what I'll be sharing with them tomorrow. So, and piggyback on the attendance, we go on home visits. Mr. Fisher goes with Officer Palmer, and we have had a couple of kids that we've had success with. When we make those visits, we've got a couple of kids we visit, and they don't answer their doors, and it's tough. Their parents are working. We call, regularly. Mr. Fisher calls, I call. We follow up with parents. We have those tough conversations with them. We have the attendance letters that go out. We do try to intervene and come up with plans for those kids and find ways to get them to school. I think that there's some apathy out there. We've got to work on that. We've got to find a way around that, and that's a big part of it that we struggle with. And hopefully we're working on our own incentive program, and whether we're going to tie that in with academics or whether we're going to just focus on attendance is kind of the other thing that we've kind of gone back and forth with as a group and a BLT. So we're working through that. Really focus trying to do something this year, but a bigger focus just realizing our problem and working through it is coming up with a more organized yearly focus where we have a lot of short-term primers or rewards of some kind that will add up to a bigger thing at the end of the year, and that's kind of what we're looking forward towards next year.
Mr. Stickle, I noticed the Leader in Me conference. Is that a regional conference?
Yeah, it's so we have our day the 9th, and we'll get a little more information. But yeah, there'll be several schools from the area that are going to come that day on the 25th, and she'll meet with them. Our rep will meet with them, and we'll be there and kind of talk a little bit about what we do in our building. And I think some of it's just to get people organized and focused on their goals for this next year. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know exactly the numbers of how many will be there yet. She'll kind of she'll have a better idea when we meet with her on the 9th, which she meets with our team. So.
Thank you.
I was looking at some things from last month, and we hired Ms. Zubek to be the academic coach. Is that something this year, or is that
we've always had an academic team for several years. Ms. McDaniel and her do it. We have a 7th and an 8th grade team, so we've had a large amount of interest in the past. So it helps work through that, and they can kind of split things up and work on it. I know that we had started one in Lafayette County, so they're going to actually be coming up. This is their first year, so that'll be good for us. I think we'll get some. I know they're currently setting up their competition, so that should be very helpful. I think to have 2 of them, and especially with kids and activities. that kind of helps divide that time, and teachers can work around those things too if we have to. So.
This is maybe a more general question, not necessarily just your building, but do we have any numbers on the attendance for kids that are in after-school activities like academic bowl or sports or whatever versus those that aren't?
I mean, traditionally they're higher. Have I cross-referenced it in our building? No. I mean, we could sit down and cross-reference and go back and figure that out. There's always some outliers in every area, right? But generally, hands down, the kids that are involved in actually co-curricular activities, they're at school more. They're just more interested in things for them to do. And that's part of the things that we're looking for next year is opening up some more clubs, which is something we've talked to Dr. Robinson about. He's been passionate about, finding something for our other kids to do and get more things going. I know we want to start a student council and get that going next year. That's something that's a huge focus for us to try to get more activities and more things for our students to do and be a part of. We'd really like to start an open council, or we'd have an executive board and then an open council where any kid could be involved in it. So those are some things that we're looking at. We got kids that have brought some ideas to me for some clubs, and we're wading through some of those things and the feasibility of what they want to do and what we can do and some of that. But I think those are good conversations to have with those kids, and that's been kind of a fun thing. Yeah.
Well, you guys think graduation rates are higher for kids that are in extracurricular?
Yep.
So is there a way we can draw more kids into those kind of activities? Like, how do we communicate that? I mean, how do we get the kids how do we focus on the kids that don't do any of that and get them involved in something extra? Because that is an incentive. You can't participate if you're not in school, right? So I'm going to go to school even though I don't feel great. I'm not really sick.
I'm staying here today for that reason. Like I'm 100%. If it wasn't for the sport of wrestling, I wouldn't be in this room. I wouldn't be. To be 100% honest, my outcome in life would not have been good. So wrestling and sports kept me going to school, and I figured out what my passion was, and I had people that cultivated it and fostered it, and that's why I'm where I am today. So I totally understand that, and that's something that we've got to find out what those kids are passionate about, right?
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing, is getting them to open up and find out what they're passionate about, which I think we're getting better at. I think we're starting to get where kids feel like they can trust us and share some of that stuff with us, and we're opening up some new avenues for them. So hopefully we'll get some more of that this next year. And I think we've got some teachers that are passionate about some things, and they share their passions. Hopefully we can kind of open up that a little bit more. So.
Well, and as you open that in junior high, then the desire, I think when you hit high school and you kind of realize this is kind of fun and you start looking, so I think the more you can do in junior high, the better.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say kudos that you've created an environment where you have students coming to you with ideas, or and that you're open to it and investigating it, and hopefully moving
our
forward with
teachers and
those.
our family times, because they've done a good job of that as well. Like I'm 100% honest. That's where a lot of those kids come to me from, those family times where they've had ideas, they've had discussions, and they've come to me, wanting to do something like that. So that's where some of that started. So I think that's good, because it's as our teachers are having those conversations with those kids in that time, and that's what it's for. So.
Anyone else? Thanks, sir.
Thank you, guys.
CIS, Ms. Cox.
I'll start with some celebrations. Today, our fifth graders had their spelling bee competition, and they had, I'll back up a little bit. It's been, I think, pre-COVID since fifth grade participated in that. So Mrs. Baker, the fifth grade teacher, took that on, and she started an after-school spelling bee club, opened it up to any fifth grader that wanted to join. Not sure how many she started with, but 13 ended up staying with it all this time, so they had their spelling bee today in the gym in front of all the fourth and fifth graders, because we wanted to entice the fourth graders to see what this was about, with the microphone and the judges and the whole scenario. So it was good for them. Nyla Williams won, so she will go on, well actually I think 3 of them will go on. Ethan Smith, Maya Curtis, and then the 2 alternates were Elise Stretch and McKinley Carnot. So was exciting, and they were so nervous. They did a good job. We were really proud of them, and I think kind of got some interest in the fourth grade. Like, I even had a message after school from a fourth grade parent. How can I get my kid in this? They're so excited about it. Okay, next year. So I want to thank Mrs. Baker for taking that on and encouraging that. So those students will go on to the county spelling bee in February, which I think is in Plattsburgh, the sheriff's school. So that was an exciting day. Thursday, we hope, will be a celebration day at CIS. We've kind of jam-packed a lot of end-of-semester recognitions and awards. So the Distinguished Dragon students will have some move time by grade level. Ms. Soper has organized the annual accelerated reader dance parties with the DJ and all. So those are the students that have met their accelerated reader goals for the semester. So that's some celebration times. We're going to have a pizza party for the classrooms at each grade level that have the best attendance. One of the other things we've added recently to promote good attendance, we've done some what we call pop-up awards for, just, hey, today, Mrs. Giffen's class had 100% of their students here and took them all snack, and we did that when every class that day that had perfect attendance. So just trying to instill that.
Have you noticed
that idea that, it's good that you're here and we're proud that you're here and we want to reward you for it?
Is it too early to know if that's made a
Yes,
difference?
because we've only done that a couple of times.
Okay.
We just started that.
Yeah.
As far as our attendance procedures, very much what we talked about earlier. The secretary makes those follow-up calls if we don't have a response from the parent first thing. If it's multiple days, especially if we're not getting hold of parents or they're not coming in, Mrs. Sedgwick is making those phone calls. She's also doing letters, having conversations with the Children's Division, which is just conversations. At this age, it's not so much depending on the child, it's depending on the adult family. So it's a battle sometimes. We are battling a lot of sickness, especially this last month. And some of it, it's not just a day or two. A lot of times it's the whole week. We have a lot of stuff going on. So, but we're making every effort for that to be a priority for our students and families.
Excited to see your math fluency plan. I mean, not that I
Yes.
see the plan, but
Yeah.
just knowing about our math scores and wondering if you take adults. Do some help. No, that's
Yes,
that
it's
looks.
a work in progress,
Yeah.
being guided a lot by our RPEC trainers and Mrs. Parkey, who is exceptional at evaluating data and looking at what are good practices and research base. And she hooked me in on a new podcast. That's my new driving. What I listen to now every day coming to and from school. So there's a lot of conversations going on, and we have weekly collaboration meetings at every grade level for each content area. So an hour every week is committed to talking about instructional strategies, evaluating their data, whether that's classroom assessments or NWEA or STAR. We're using that. For example, we just finished the NWEA testing. So when we come back from Christmas break, we'll be into an ELA cycle for our RTI 3-week session. So they're using that data to decide what standard they're going to focus on, dividing those students out by how they scored on that. I mean, that's the process that they go through every 3 weeks when we rotate in our RTI system. So they are spending a lot of time focusing on what the students are learning, what they're not learning, how we can approach that different. So it's good conversations going on.
Anything else? Thank you. Ms. Ormsby.
Ms. Ormsby's ready for the snow.
I am. Or horse riding, whatever. I'm ready for a good time.
Oh, it's ready for a good time.
Well, I'm going to start off with my celebration, which goes along with my growth, excuse me, I'm getting myself tickled, growth mindset about parents as teachers. And I just wanted to give a little, as we are a public forum here with our Facebook Live, I wanted to just reach out to parents and let them know a little bit more about parents as teachers. And you all, if you weren't aware, that Parents as Teachers was actually the baby of Missouri. It was their gift to the country in the 1980s. They pioneered the concept of partnering with parents to embrace their role as their child's first and most influential teacher. It is a free service in our district, and every district in the state, provided for all district families, offering prenatal to kindergarten entry support. Mary Bradford is our Parents as Teachers coordinator, and Carrie Whitaker is a Parents as Teachers educator, and they're both wonderful ladies. I love them both dearly. They're highly trained parent educators who can meet our parents and their child in the comfort of their home. They can meet them at Parkview if they're more comfortable with that, or even in a neutral location. They've even met at the library, McDonald's, wherever the family is willing to meet them, they'll go there. Parents as Teachers is wonderful at keeping parents informed of their child's progress toward meeting critical milestones. I was a big proponent of that as a parent, had both of my children enrolled in that program, and I couldn't wait for them to come, because you were able to see, where is your child developmentally, where should they be, and they'll give you all the resources and support that you need to get your child where they need to be at the right age. And those steps are very critical for your child's growth and in being school ready, not just kindergarten ready, but preschool ready, and to be successful in life, period. They offer reassurance to parents. If you're maybe a new mom, first-time mom, dad, they can give you that reassurance and knowing that you're doing the right things, and if you do have questions, they're always there to offer and provide that support. If a child does have a delay, they're a wonderful resource to help get those resources to the families and get signed up for any type of care that they might need. If you're interested in Parents as Teachers, you can give Mary Bradford or Carrie Whitaker a call at 816-882-1062 or reach out to them on Facebook at Cameron Parents as Teachers. But our biggest celebration is that, like everything we're talking about tonight with attendance, the program took a huge hit with COVID, and it's really been hard to get the numbers back up. One, because people didn't want people in their home, because they didn't want the greater exposure to germs. So we're really working on getting that program up and going, because it is critical for us at Parkview, making sure we have all those families that need help identified and that they're receiving the resources that they need. And we've partnered this year. The three of us have sat down and just tried to brainstorm and come up with some solutions to that. I invited them to set up a little table at all of our heavily traveled events. They were able to come to the book fair, which is always a big hit with families, and at our fall title night. We signed up 4 families then, and then I took one of their flyers and pushed it out, and so far we've added 24 children, which is huge for them, and from 19 different families just in the course of this semester.
Great.
So I'm pretty excited about that. They're really excited to be up and going and reaching those numbers that they had prior to COVID. So that's a huge celebration for us.
And that is a free program, right?
It is completely free. Yeah, it's wonderful. And then back to your questions about attendance. At Parkview, we're really on the struggle bus this year. We have been for the last 2 years, and I had hoped that, with us being able to go back to all of our previously successful incentives, that we would pick right up where we were before, and it has not been that way, which is hard for me, because I like to be successful, and that really bothers me. So we're reaching out to parents almost daily. We have our teachers. My idea of the way this should be is the teacher is the friendly, supportive, caring
person that reaches out, and expresses their concern as to why the child isn't at school. We really miss them. Here are all the things that they're falling behind on. If you could get them here as soon as possible, it would be great. And then if that isn't successful, then it moves on to Mrs. Riley, or assistant principal, and she has that more difficult conversation as to, like you were expressing, Pam, about, the stern. We've got to get them here. This is critical. If they're not here, it is detrimental to their education. It is, at some point, those conversations can be about educational neglect, and unfortunately, we're having a lot of those conversations currently. We do call daily. To answer your question, Leanne calls, and if we have more, then we're able to get through. Stacy Robinson, our school nurse, will help call. Mrs. Riley helps call. Today we had over 70 children gone, and we don't have 70 children documented sick. It is a crisis that we are experiencing. Different strategies that we have done, we've put out signs that say, parents, you have to come in and sign your kid in, because people were dropping off and driving off, and then the kids are little, they can't get the doors open. That's a safety issue. And as Mr. Stickle said, it's apathy. There doesn't seem to be a sense of concern. I did put that email out purposefully. I want parents to know how critical it is. I want them to know the effects of you not bringing your child to school on time, and how it does break down the educational process for many different departments in the building. It was not successful. I stood in the office every morning for the next 3 or 4 days after that email went out, and saw the same families coming in with their children tardy anywhere from 7:45 to 9 a.m. Those children still have to be fed breakfast. That has to take place in the classroom while the teacher's trying to teach. It is an issue. We are able to document all those things. We ask for parents to provide doctor's notes. All of those go into a file. Mrs. Riley keeps a spreadsheet for which students have documentation for absences, which students do not. We send out letters. She's had a multitude of phone calls, parent meetings. For some that has been helpful, but for many it has not. It reaches a point where you have to contact Children's Division or the Juvenile Office again, but that is not successful. They are also understaffed. They are also overwhelmed, and that is not child abuse. That is of a critical nature right now, so those calls are being denied or unsubstantiated as warranted. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. And for us, our focus is on making school the most fun and positive environment that we possibly can, because I think that's, what we can do at our age. It's not the kids' fault that they're not at school. So we have to do everything we can to incentivize them to be there. We do a lot of that. It's almost insane how much of that we do. And it does work, but it's not their fault that they can't make it. And a lot of parents, to those that keep their kids home when they're sick, I'm thankful for them that they do that. It's this conversation, or for anyone that's listening, that's not for those people. There are great people who have unfortunately had children that have suffered from multiple illnesses. And I think that you all know families that have had kids that have been hit multiple times. That's real. But we also have a lot of parents who are just keeping their kids home because it's more convenient, because they don't want to get out, or they still have a little bit of a cough or a little bit of a runny nose. But, for kids that attend Parkview, that's something that they may have all season. They may have all year. That's just our reality. But we have to get them at school. So we'll continue in our efforts, which include incentives. We have weekly incentives where we have contests. The kids watch it on a TV screen in the hallway, and they love it because they get to see, are we going to win? And they get that big trophy, huge trophy. They get a candy if they're the winner. We have new quarterly incentives, which is the class pizza party, just all kinds of things that they're able to do, tickets or points towards the end of the year carnival. We're always trying to have fun events, like for instance tomorrow every grade level has a themed event to celebrate the holidays. We have, today was experience days where we have hours full of science experiments and projects, hands-on projects for the kids to participate in. We had our tribe activity today where kids were able to meet with their, the bigs and littles, the older kids meet with little kids, and they had a group project to make Christmas cards for local nursing home residents. Just always something to incentivize them and hopefully get them in the door so we can do our jobs. So we'll continue our efforts, and thank you guys for your support.
I think my biggest thing, I think everybody in this room is concerned about the students and the students' future. And so we want your student to be successful. And we want your student to succeed. And the best way for us to help get them educated is to have them in that classroom so they can hear that instruction first time, and that teachers aren't being split trying to catch other kids up and keep this class at this level. So when we express that we want your kid at school, it's because we're concerned about their future. And we want them to be the best way for us to educate them is to have them in front of that teacher. So that's why we talk about these things. It's for the good of the student. And honestly, for just our future in general, because these are the little kids that will be leading us someday. So we want them to be educated and extremely successful.
We can't teach them if they're not.
Exactly. This is a problem among many districts. I know. Are there conversations among superintendents about what are we doing? We don't have the support from B.E.S.T that we need to try.
It's unfortunately the same thing in every district. Yeah, everybody's fighting the attendance. There's not any support from B.E.S.T, Children's Services. There's just none. And to a degree, I mean, yes, this attendance we need to have, but when they're focusing on child abuse and other things,
right?
That's I 100% get it. But even in those cases, I feel like we are getting neglected. We've turned in too many cases of those too that unfortunately are getting unsubstantiated. And when you get kids come with bruises and cuts and all types of stuff, and you know things are going on and burns, and you get no substantiation whatsoever, you do feel very defeated. So kudos to these individuals, because it is very defeating sometimes when you're trying to get all these kids, you're trying to do all these things. And I wish I had answers, and I don't know that any other superintendents have answers, because I've opened up every avenue, and I know these guys are trying to take advantage of it, to get kids at school, because like I said, it's hard to educate a kid if they're not in school. And we've got good teachers.
I'm sorry.
They just have to be here. So.
With Children's Services, is that is like so many things, they just don't have the help, or is the funding changed?
They're short-handed right now.
Yeah.
They come
But
in.
it's not a change in funding. It's not a political problem. It's a health problem.
It's just like Taco Bell. No one wants to work.
We have a monthly meeting with Children's Division and the juvenile system, and it's a constant rotation of people. We talk to one person 1 month, and then there's new people in the next month.
Right.
So, they're trying to catch up on old cases and figure out, and then somebody else new comes in.
In the state of Missouri, since January last year, they've lost over 2/3 of their staff and tried to replace that.
And juvenile officers are the same way. Like we lost a phenomenal juvenile officer, I think, and he moved up. We lost him, so it's tough. Now they're shorthanded, so it's hard.
But we're going to keep moving. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to do everything we can. Nobody here is not going to.
Yeah, I appreciate the passion and the dedication of our professional staff. I mean, I think every day you guys strive for the best for our district, and I hear that in all of the incentives and the things and the numerous hours you reach out to families trying to get their kiddo here so that you can educate that student. So kudos to all of you. Just keep it up. It's a daily thing.
Just to piggyback on the attendance thing, I can tell you, besides meeting with Children's Division monthly, some of the buildings have bought alarm clocks for students, so that way the kids can get up themselves. Wow. I mean, we've gone to that extreme of buying things for the home, so families will get up. It's not for lack of trying. And some of the kids realize it too. They want to be there, but they don't have the control. So I would say that the staff works very hard at that. So a couple changes on my board report. I had marked that we had 3 students that attend an alternative placement. That's actually 5 now. We have 2 that attend a state school placement.
our group homes here in Cameron have expanded, and they're talking about expanding to Hamilton and some surrounding areas, but they now take students 16 years and up to adult. And so we have seen some students move in for care, and they have obviously transitioned to our school and then go to home days. So that's an increase, but it is with our school district. So I wanted to talk about that. Special Olympics, we do have 18 students that are currently involved with Special Olympics. Courtney Mans is our sponsor, and then we have kind of shifted to doing things during the school day, so that way all students can participate. When we do things in the evening or on the weekends, we have just a handful of students that can sometimes attend. We did have 11 attend the bowling event, which was great, but then we still had 7 kids that weren't able to participate. So we started shifting and doing things with area schools. Wednesday, February 8th, we are doing a basketball clinic with Plattsburgh. And then March 23rd, we are doing a job Olympics, and that's going to be hosted by East Buchanan. So some of the area schools were just taking turns hosting things. The job Olympics isn't sports related. We're making job type skills like stacking shelves, putting items, like grocery store bags, make it into a little competition. So that way we can actually work on real skills so the kiddos can have a job when they exit our school. So the sports is great. The kids love to participate, but not every kid wants to participate in sports. And so fitting in some real life activities is great. I'd also say that it has been great doing it during the school day. Whenever everybody was able to go bowling, all the kids love it, something different. And then we don't have to worry about finding volunteers, because finding volunteers on the weekend is difficult. We do have one sponsor that is paid, but finding numerous volunteers for that many students that require lots of hands is harder. So making that switch in the area school districts has been great. So then last Friday we did have another preschool screening. We did screen 32 students. We did a half-day screening, so we have 4 preschool age students come in every 30 minutes. So it was quick, and we have changed that back over to Parkview. So the kiddos get to come into the school, get excited about the school. They were oohing and eyeing over all of the Christmas decorations and just, so getting them down the hallway was great. They get all excited. And then they get to be in a preschool classroom, so they get excited about seeing the toys. Some of them have a hard time leaving. We had quite a few kids crying, and not because they wouldn't participate, because they didn't want to leave school. They thought they were getting to start school, which is a good problem to have. Sometimes until their parents are dragging them out. But it's great that we have that many students. We do have quite a large waiting list still, but we are, as students exit or move districts, or some students we have evaluated for special education services, and so as they shift from a program, we are constantly putting in new students. So, but we did 32. We will have to rescreen about 3 of them. We have 3 that didn't participate, but we will just bring them back in for another screening. But it's great to have that many families that are constantly coming in. We do screenings about every other month, and then we do a couple screenings in the spring, because that's when everybody gears up for thinking about preschool the following year. So, and then last thing is the kitchen area at CIS. I put some pictures in our board report if you had not seen them. Kitchen area part looks great. Grassley and his crew are still working on the countertops. That's kind of been pushed back a little bit as they fix other things that have gone on in the district, but he assures me that that's the project that will be focused on over Christmas break, so that way we can start cooking and utilizing that space. Our t-shirts that have been successful, we've made quite a few t-shirts for, like a 6th grade class had t-shirts. Our esports group had t-shirts. I know the school's doing a fundraiser for a teacher right now. Like, there are lots of use for that. And it's great that the kiddos are helping in that, learning a job skill, learning how to communicate with other people that they're not necessarily comfortable with when they deliver. So it's been good. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maintenance and technology reports. I just had a comment, Dr. Robinson, on maintenance and custodian. He says the work that the custodians do is often overlooked. Is there something that we can do convey from the Board of Education, from district to, no, we do appreciate,
Yeah.
other than just, we appreciate.
Right. Yeah. We can look at some ideas, yeah. I know that they do work hard. I mean, especially with all the sicknesses, we've got the flu machines out and we're fighting as best we can and doing those different things. And yeah, they're fighting a good fight too. They are. So I'm welcome to suggestions on some of those ideas if there's something. But
Are they do they get included in our, probably not our teacher appreciation?
Yes, they do,
Oh, yeah.
and everything.
We just call it staff appreciation. That way it's everybody.
We also, all the administrators host an annual breakfast every year, and we all get together and cook them a big meal and thank them for all their hard work over the summer months, and they get all the t-shirts, sweatshirts.
And I suppose in many ways I was reflecting more on, do we as a board do anything? Because I know we try to do something for the teachers, but I don't think we necessarily felt, maybe we can run something over to the.
If you have thoughts after the meeting, get hold of Dr. Robinson and let's see if there's something to show that we really do
they're integral to
appreciate.
making us work. So.
Rather than just lip service, we can say, yeah, this is, yeah.
They do a great job.
Here's $1 million.
Yeah. Okay, any other comment or question on the maintenance or technology reports anybody has?
I just had a question about the technology report. It says we were testing out Securely Aware. What are we testing? Are we testing functionality, or are we what are we looking for?
That's a new program we started a couple of weeks ago. I'm guessing maybe right before Thanksgiving. We already have Securely, which picks up keywords and different things like that. So Securely Aware is I wouldn't say updated version, but a bigger version of that picks up emails, picks up
Google Docs.
After Christmas, it'll pick up Google Sheets, Google Forms, slides. So it takes all these things into that, and then it flags it, and then it kind of rates them on a scale of, hey, this is super serious, and you need to call somebody like now, or hey, they looked up, they're trying to, I get all the emails, and so I see that we're on the Tyrone site and we're trying to unblock games at the high school, and it's so and so, or somebody at the middle school or whoever. But we've also had numerous issues. We've also had numerous other issues that we've been able to catch, where a kid has emailed somebody, and 6 weeks ago we didn't have the capability to catch that email, where they emailed somebody and said, I'm really struggling and I need help and I'm not sure who I need to talk to, and then that's immediately sent to our administrators, our counselors, and myself, Dr. Mefford, Miriam. Do you get those as well? No,
Not anymore.
not anymore. Okay, so
I was getting everybody's.
I get everybody's, yeah. So and so what we're doing with trying it is we are trying it. We decided to see how it was going to run till Christmas, and it's flagged a lot. It's flagged a ton, and I think it's been worthwhile, and so I think it's something we're probably going to continue with. But yeah.
Is there a point person that reviews them all, or is it sort of a group of people that have to?
If it's something at the middle school, a middle school student, then Mr. Stickle, Mr. Fisher, and Angela McGinn will get that, and I get it. I get them all. Lori gets them all. If it's Jason's building, it's sent to him and Lanigan and
Nicole and Lacey
and Henry and all of them. So yeah, and that seems to be our biggest areas. We don't have a lot of kids at intermediate and Parkview trying to unlock games or send emails to each other that are, I wouldn't even say explicit, but they have stuff in there that is.
It helps with mental health awareness, like to identify those kids that are depressed or have anxiety or,
And there's been quite a few emails that have went through. In fact, we've had to kind of go through some of our systems because we've had a couple situations where we all get that alert on a Saturday. And trying to figure out, okay, now what? We're not at school, and who are we contacting? So
that's going to be my question. So your building could essentially get 5 people, 3 counselors, and then you and Mr. Lanigan. And then what does that process then look like? Do you 5 jump on a call? Do you?
It just kind of depends on what the search is. I mean, we communicate between Nicole and I, or Lacey and I, depending on just if it's something depression or something like that, they usually will. If it's something on the other side of more of a discipline thing, we handle that. Yep.
Okay, any other questions, comments on those reports? Moving into our communications then, any communications anyone want to address the board, citizens, teachers, or students on agenda items? If not, then A1, A plus, our policy services. For those that don't know, all I know her by is Emily.
That's good. The last name is complicated.
So Emily's going to talk to us about policy services from
I did, and I'll get right to Emily here in just a second. I think you saw in your packet, I kind of put just some comparisons. Obviously, we use Missouri School Boards Association policies now. That's not uncommon. There's a lot of districts that use Missouri School Boards Association policies. They have attorneys and they write policies. One of the benefits I thought when I was at a previous district was our policies, which we had another law firm, it was Nickus O'Toole, is they provided us their policies. And I loved it when I was able to call our attorneys and they knew exactly what policy we were talking about. And so this is really what Emily's here to talk about is the company that we use for our attorney services has started into the policies 2 or 3 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, so we are in our 4th year.
4th year?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just looking at that today because I have the same question.
So, and I put some of the cost comparisons on there. I think there's some other perks to Ed Council, but I'll let Emily share a little bit of that, and I'll pull up the PowerPoint. So,
thank you.
Ed Council's excited to introduce.
Oh, can you turn your sound off because I'm talking today and not Dwayne? Okay, thank you.
There you go.
I forgot that it does that. Okay, so I am Emily. I am sorry to the Facebook Live viewers. This is probably the most boring part of the whole meeting. But I'm an attorney with Ed Council. About 5 years ago, we started talking about the idea of policy service. When our clients call us, they ask us a question and we say, all right, let's look at your policies together, or let's look at your handbooks, or let's look at your procedures. And we just kind of noticed that we had lots of questions from boards and administrators about their policies and, hey, can we change this, or why doesn't it say that? So obviously we have to have rules and regulations within a school district in order to be successful. School board policies and rules are like municipal codes for cities and statutes for states. So we just noticed that we've had so many people call us that are dissatisfied with how long their policies are or how unclear they are. So we decided that we wanted to make sure that we had some that were easy to access, easy to understand, that the rules are written for the people who are reading them, and they're easily findable. We also noticed that we were customizing a lot of policies written by other people. So Dr. Robinson might email me and say, hey, we just got this policy update, but our board doesn't want it to say this. They want it to say something else because what's best for Cameron may not be what's best for KCPS, may not be what's best for Oric. I mean, there are lots of different communities, and policies are really not like one size fits all. So we also noticed, if you printed out all of your policies, they would probably be in a stack about this big. Really, policies don't need to be that long. Policies should really be policy statements, and then things like procedure or things that are regulatory should maybe go somewhere else, so that if somebody wants to know something simple, they can look at something very simply and not have to read 8 pages in order to find the answer. And the other thing that we noticed is that a lot of times your or other districts' handbooks, so your student parent handbooks or your employee handbooks, do not match your policies. So the number of times that I can pull up a student parent handbook and then pull up a policy and see that they do not match, and it's most problematic when it comes to discipline. It's a lot because your leaders are having to develop and update their handbooks in the spare time that they have. With spare time? Got a lot. So what we see is that the board will get a policy update, and something about that update happens to be mirrored in a handbook.
Well, if you update your policy in March and your administrators or leaders are not aware of a policy update, a full policy update, or they don't really realize that they've got something in their handbook that, oh my gosh, if the board changes that, then I have to change this. So we see a lot of discrepancies. So what are we going to do instead? So we have kind of simplified things. We have written rules that are for key stakeholder groups. So you've got your public at large, and then you have board. You know, you all, your B series in your policies kind of govern your board. So you're one stakeholder group. Then you've got your employees, we've got students and parents, and then we have admin. And so the goal would be for each of those groups to be able to just open one manual or one document and say, okay, this has everything I need to know in order to be the best functioning board member, employee, parent, student partnership, whatever. So that's the goal, to try to make sure that we don't have to look in 7 different places for one answer. So we have your district policies, and then we have a board manual that tells the board how to operate, and you guys get to kind of develop that. We'll talk about that. We have an employee manual, and then student parent handbook, and then the administrative manual is kind of is really like the guts of everything. So where our other documents are shorter and more accessible, the administrative manual is long and large because it tells you the how as opposed to the what. So when we talk about policies, again, we try to just keep those very limited. We only put things in policies that are required by law. So if the Family Medical Leave Act says all political subdivisions have to have a policy and procedure on FMLA, your FMLA policy will just say the district will comply with the Family Medical Leave Act. And then in the employee manual, for instance, it will answer questions that an employee would have about whether they're eligible, how they take it, how much time they're allowed to have, what the qualifying conditions are, all of that. And then in the administrative manual, then if we had questions, your administration, Dr. Robinson would say, well, how much time does somebody get off for parental leave? And so they would look in the administrative manual. What questions do I need to ask? What forms do I need to give them to fill out? That lives in there. So you won't have an 8-page FMLA policy like you have right now. And then for district policies, those are board approved. We try to do policy updates rarely because when our policies are short and we're only putting things in there that are required by law, then the goal would be to only change them when the law changes. So if we have a case law change, when the legislature adopts new laws, if the feds change something. Sometimes DESE says, hey, you have to have a policy on this. And we say, okay, you're the boss. So if we have to have a policy on that, that's what we'll do. So administration and the board review policies, make sure that they're what you want, and then approves those annually or as necessary. We try to reduce policy updates. Board manuals. So this is kind of like your B series in your MSBA policies. They're the procedures and the board operations that you need to function as the best board you can be and the best individual board members you can be. So it's going to have basic commitments, ethical standards, board norms, and then really talks about the board superintendent relationship, and then you all develop that together with our help. So we customize that together, make sure that it says what you want it to say. Employee manual, obviously, a lot of people who have jobs outside of the school world have employee manuals, know what an employee handbook looks like. That is approved by the board. It has items and notices that are required by law in there. So if a teacher needs information on public service loan forgiveness, that lives in the employee manual. So that they can just open that and know that that's where that information is. And then again, the board approves the employee manual because those are the rules of the road for our employees. And then that's customized by our office with your admin. Student parent handbook. Okay, so this is important. I don't know, how many student parent handbooks do you have right now? One for every
building.
Okay, so how you do that is up to you. As a parent, I have a 3-year-old, an almost 5-year-old, and a 9-year-old. So my goal would be able to only have to look one place, but every district is different. So you would get to decide, do we want building handbooks? Do we want an elementary and a secondary? How do we want to do that? So we'll do that any way you want. And so that is really going to have everything parents and kids need in it in order to figure out where they're supposed to go, what they're supposed to do, what snacks they're allowed to bring for class parties, and whether their prom date can be over the age of 21. So, we just need to look and figure out what all those different rules are. And so those kind of details. Some districts want to have really detailed student parent handbooks, totally fine. Other districts want to keep it simple and allow buildings and classrooms to kind of get out more of that nitty-gritty stuff to the parents who need to know it. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. The board's going to approve that annually. It gets distributed to students and parents, and it gets posted on the district's website. Policies also get posted on the district's website. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that tech piece here in a second. Again, I've kind of told you the administrative manual talks about the how. So the administrative manual is not approved by the board unless you want to approve it. The reason that we don't have it approved by the board is because if some procedure or detail isn't working, we should be able to change it without saying, well, we can't do it that way because we haven't asked the board and we need to meet with the board. So you can certainly review it. If you, like I said, if you want to approve it, you can. But we've noticed that we're able to add things, change things when Desi says, hey, you need to have an extra blurb about this or whatever. We can change that within the administrative manual, and it doesn't have to come before you because it's not really that 20,000 foot view stuff that's in the board's purview. It's more central office and building admin type level. Again, like I said, that's really long, and we can really put anything in it that's necessary. So we had a district reach out to us who said, hey, we need a procedure because we're getting a number of requests for people to install memorials on district property. So for people who had passed away or left money to a district, left money to the district in will, they want, a statue or a flag or something. And they said, we don't have a procedure for how we deal with this or say yes or no. What do we need to do about that? So we just created a procedure and put it in the admin manual. Didn't need to go before the board. Okay, so every policy service has their own wacky way of how they identify things, and this is how we do it. So when we have sections that make sense in terms of the letters that go in front of them. So if it's a C type rule or policy, that means it's community related. G for governance, S for students, E for employees, I for instruction, F for finance, facilities, and operations. Then we assign it a number. And then the last letter is, if it has a P at the end of it, that means it's a policy. If it has a B, it means it lives in the board manual. If it has an A, it's in the administrative manual, E for employee manual, and S for student parent handbook. Now, we might have a C160 policy. We might also have a corresponding C160 about the same subject matter that lives in the board manual. Then we may write it a little bit differently in order to present the information that employees need to know about C160. And similarly, we may have a different way that we narrate that for students and parents. So again, it's like written, the topic may be the same, but it's written for the person who's reading it. And then the C160A is probably going to be something that's long because it's going to tell administration when we have something that falls under this category, this is how we deal with it. We will host your policies and your student parent handbooks. So that's part of the cost. We have a website that we create for Cameron, and then we put the policies there. And then we also put the student parent handbook or handbooks there. And then you would have a link on your website. We'd give you a link, and then you can just put it on your website. Parents and viewers can click on it and see what they need to see. And then when there are changes, so when we update your student parent handbook or we adopt a new policy, we go in there and do that for you, so you don't have to do it. And then we also have a non-public site. This is something that, okay, this is not my job because I don't understand how to do it, but there's a non-public site, someone else at the office does this, that's very important, where your employee handbook and your administrative manual and your board manual can live, so that there's that online access to it and doesn't have to live in some random like Google Doc or something. If you want to see a site, you can look at the New Bloomfield R3 School District site and kind of check it out and see what it looks like. And then we will also, like I said, customize your policies and your documents to make sure that they fit what you all want and what you all need. And then we also will advise on transitioning, and we look at all of your current policies and your current handbooks and kind of create a mock-up, and then we meet with your admin. We usually just do it via Zoom, and I pull up the document and say, you know, do you want to keep it? Do you want to change it? Do you want to get rid of it? And let's talk about why. It leads to some good conversations about what our current practices are and why we're doing what we've always done, or maybe we need to do something a little different. And then we can also provide and will provide in-person training regarding how to work the system, not work the system, how to use the system. Gosh, that was like an attorney Freudian slip there. So how to use the system, and then we want to make sure that, you know, it's user-friendly for everybody. So we'll do some training on that. And then lastly, if you need advice regarding what your rules mean, what does it mean whenever we say, you know, military leave under FMLA, and then we would talk about that. So that, and that's part of the charge. That's part of the entire package. Now, if Dr. Robinson calls me and says, hey, we have somebody who, you know, is going to have a baby, and we need to talk about, you know, like what that looks like, and they're, you know, we have to talk about something specific that's not part of the legal guidance that's included with the service, but generally all the customization, and if you don't understand something or you need interpretation of what exists, then that's part of it. Right now, if Dr. Robinson sent me a policy and says, you know, and says, I don't understand what this means, or if he says, hey, we need to customize this or change it because the board doesn't like this wording, that's something that you have to pay for. I don't think we do it all that often, but sometimes when there are policy updates, we have lots of clients who have questions, like, do we really have to do this? So that's part of it. Cost, Dr. Robinson already put that in there for you. It's $12,500 for the first year. First year is a heavy lift, just to create and customize, and then it's $2,000 a year after that. And then we would want to get it all ready for your school year for 23-24 starts. That would be the goal.
Dr. Robinson, is
Yes.
the $36.50 that we pay MSBA an annual fee?
That's an annual fee. Yeah, that's for their full policy maintenance review. So effectively doing the same thing, but I mean, now
Without
this
legal
is,
advice.
huh?
Without providing legal advice.
Or handbooks.
Yeah, or handbooks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
How many districts do you work with, use the service?
So I think for 22-23, we are at 37. And then we have 5 more coming on for 24-20. I'm so confused about my years this time. 23-24, it doesn't seem possible. For 23-24, we are not going to take more than 15 districts. That's how many we feel like we can do and do well. So, you know, we're at, I think, like 5 or 6 right now, and then we usually get a lot more in February and March. But we kind of like to start having those conversations in early spring and mocking things up. Other questions?
What's the transition look like when you say you meet with administration? Like, what are you talking time-wise and meeting-wise and?
So what I find, we do the drafting, right? And so then what we tend to do, the way that I like to do it is I ask Dr. Robinson, all right, who needs to be in the room whenever we have a discussion about what your employee manual needs to look like? And then what I do is I pull, we have a Zoom meeting because then I can pull the document up and everybody can look at it at the same time. And then we spend, usually the employee manual conversation takes about an hour and a half. And then we go through it and I make myself notes and then we edit it and then we send it back and say, take a look at it, see what you think. If it's good, we're good. We'll finalize it, digitize it, whatever it is that Kristen does back there with the internet and the website. But so we do all that and then get it to the board. Student parent handbooks take a little bit longer. So depending on how you want to do it, we usually have building leaders in the room and we go through, you know, kind of mush together everything that you have in place. And then we say, all right, what do we want to say about pick up and drop off? And what do we want to say about visitors at lunch? And, you know, those kinds of things. Where do we want the athletic handbook to live? Is that its own thing, or is it in the high school handbook? So, you know, we go through that. So if we do separate handbooks, then typically it's about an hour to an hour and 30 minutes per handbook. If we do it all together, that's kind of a longer discussion, so it's usually about 3 or 4 hours. And then again, we take our notes, we update it, we send it over and say, hey, everybody, take a look at this, and let's have a discussion about if you see anything else that needs to be changed. And then what inevitably happens is we get new teachers, we change employees, people move positions. So usually we'll get an email during the summer that says, hey, can you please change our employee directory, if you even want it in there, to say these things, and then we change them. So, you know, we're doing all that tweaking on our end. But it is an initial time commitment, but I don't know how much time you guys spend doing your handbooks every year anyway. So I can't speak to that.
A question I would have just regarding the communication to, for example, say August 1st, we say we have these new policies. Mm-hmm. And while I know that when you say these are all new policies, it really doesn't, you know, what does that mean? You know, but the messaging to the public could be like, what? The school just up and changed all their policies. Mm-hmm. Of course we didn't. But do you have a process for communicating that to the public in a way that is reassuring, or?
So I think the way I would characterize it is not that we're getting rid of our policies and getting all new policies. We're really just converting the policy service.
Reforming. Okay.
Right.
Policy service change.
Yeah, so we are changing our policy service provider, because from a bigger perspective, what you have to have on the books, you have to have. Mm-hmm. It's just about where it is and whether this is really a friendly way to use it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I think. Yeah, we're just switching policy service providers. Mm-hmm.
So do most of the policies and still align with MSBA, or how does that work with the districts that you help now?
So I think I understand your question. Like, I mean, the legally required elements of what is in an MSBA policy or an MCE policy, the policies that Tom Mickus writes, they have to be there, right? So, but let's say you have a 9-page policy about FMLA. Really, only this much of that needs to be in policy, right? So if I can look through your current FMLA policy and say, all right, your FMLA year starts on July 1 every year. You know, you offer these kinds of additional benefits outside of FMLA, and then I'll pick that up and put it into the employee manual. And then when we have a discussion about the employee manual, we make sure that it is aligned with what you currently do. Same thing about like staff leave, for instance. So if your MSBA policy says, you know, teachers get 9 days of PTO annually, then we pull your 9 days of PTO out of your current policy and put it into the employee manual. But then we also have a discussion. So the discussion that we tend to have surrounding that is usually some districts do sick and personal. I don't know what you guys do.
We just have annual leave.
Right. So districts who have sick and personal sometimes say, well, should we maybe go to, you know, PTO or annual leave, or should we keep it sick and personal? And then the districts that have PTO say, well, maybe we should do back to sick and personal. So, you know, those are the kind of conversations that we have, though. They want to know, what are other districts doing? What, you know, how are you seeing this work out? And so we do pull what you have in terms of your current system. But then we do have questions about, how is it working? Is it working?
So what I'm hearing you say specifically that I think is exciting is that the policies, because they're streamlined, they're more transparent or understandable to just people that have to follow them, yeah, or who have an interest in them.
Yes.
And so yay. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, I don't want to have to dig through literally 8,000 pages of policies to figure out how I'm supposed to be able to address the board. Right. So, nor do I want to have to as an employee, dig through 1,000 pages in order to figure out how many days I'm allotted for bereavement leave. I want to look at my employee manual, flip to the part of my employee manual that says leave, and then look at this much information, and I can see it.
So this actually goes to our communication plan in a way. It communicates our policies in a more streamlined and,
I think so.
yeah.
And I think it also customizes all of ours to make it more, yeah, just here, this looks similar and everything, so.
We would also need to be sure, though, if we move it from a policy level into a manual, if we change it, like you were talking about, like
We do
PTO
that
or
for you.
whatever, then we would want to make sure we highlight what the changes are, because that could be a policy change without calling it a policy change, which is not what our goal would be, right? That's not a great idea. I'm saying we would want to highlight that.
No.
Yeah.
Right, so if something changes in the employee manual, that's a rule change, right? So if you went from saying PTO to sick and personal, you would say, yes, we changed, employee manual rule E160E that says, we've gone from a PTO system to a sick and personal system. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just using it as an example. But, yeah, so because the board is going to adopt that employee manual annually, it is relatively clear that that's something that the board is reviewing and having ownership over.
I guess what I'm saying though is if it's specific, like if the FMLA, say the PTO leave policy, it says you get 10 days of PTO in a year, and then we change it to a manual, we change it to 5, right? Like that's what we would want to highlight. And I'm not saying we would ever do that, or just as an example, we want to highlight the change and where where it went, right, and what the change was, and that would be the side by side, like a comparison that we could see,
right?
Where the
so
changes are.
we do, because we start out by taking what you have and putting it into our format, you can see, there will be a document, it's a little messy, but you all will be able to see what you started with and what you ended up with.
Okay.
But we don't necessarily have like a crosswalk, so to speak,
Gotcha.
only because crosswalk is a little difficult, because what you have right now is just this long list of policies, and ours are in these different stakeholder manuals. We're working on a crosswalk, but it has been low priority.
So if we were to change substance, we would want to make sure that was part of our communication around the change, because that's more than just changing the system, that's changing the
Right. So do you all have like a sick leave pool right now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So if, for instance, anything changed about the sick leave pool, that's important to employees, right? So if at the time that we update the employee manual, or we create the employee manual, we somehow change the sick leave pool requirements, or however we're doing it, then we would figure out, with you all, okay, what do the employees need to know? We would like to say, nothing has changed except for the following things that you need to be aware of for the 23-24 school year.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah.
We will still have a relationship with MSBA.
We do, because I still think for the board to continue professional development in those different pieces, I think that's still.
But would we still have to pay the $3,479?
We wouldn't be paying for the policy services, so we wouldn't be paying that part of it. You would just be a member of MSBA, which is whatever their fee is, and all the things that go along with it, the conferences and the meetings and
the board training,
the board trainings and all that stuff.
The legislative.
The legislative, yeah. Yep, we just would be changing policy services. The last district I worked at was the exact same thing. They were still MSBA members, but we used MCE policies.
So your recommendation would be to?
My recommendation is, I think it's going to streamline things, and there's too many times that I've had to call Emily and we have to talk through a policy, and that's not probably what they would have recommended. And so we talked
only
through
had that a
policy.
few times.
Yeah, we've had that where our policy says this, and they're like, I would never have stated it this way, and we really probably did it this way, and we probably could have avoided, I wouldn't say a mess, but we could have probably avoided other situations or found to alleviate the situation a lot quicker had we had policies that were probably more streamlined by the people that we're actually working with. Not daily, but sometimes. So.
Dan, those on our policy committee, you and, is it Jackie?
Andy.
Andy. What is your recommendation?
Well, what I've seen so far of Ed Council, I like it a lot better than MSBA's. We don't need all that information.
Yeah, the last time was what?
23,
It was an inch thick.
23
Just
policies, and it
24,
was,
yeah, it was
yeah.
a lot to read. It took a long time, so
Yeah.
I agree.
For
that
23 policies.
If you have a policy statement that we will comply with the law, that does cover what you need to cover. And so, you know, if we can streamline it that way, I think that would be better. I would also like lots of time to do this.
Well, that's why we're looking at it now, because then we have to,
Yeah.
you know, to have this thing completed by August.
Well, we want your policies installed
Well,
by
yeah.
June 30th.
Yeah.
Because July 1's your new
July,
fiscal
yeah,
year.
July.
But when we talk about August 1, we really are focusing in on student parent handbooks, employee manuals. I mean, those stakeholders need that, right? I mean, that's
Right.
what tells us about our new school year. So, you know, that's like end
Do
last
we need
possible date.
a motion to do this?
Yes, absolutely.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Do you provide forms?
Yes.
Yep, those are in the
Like sample
administrative manual.
letters or templates or?
Yes, and if you say, hey, we need a form for notification of an IEP meeting or something, you notice a meeting, and you don't have it or you don't like what you have, we'll add it, create it and add it. Or if you say, you know, we need a letter for 10-day OSS. Yep, same deal.
I would make a motion to, upon the recommendation of Dr. Robinson and our policy committee, that we move toward
Ed Council.
Ed Council,
Policy
thank you.
services.
Policy services.
Second.
Moved by Ann, seconded by Andy to move to Ed Council for our policy services. Any discussion on the motion?
I would like to know if the administrators, any other administrators, any other questions, because this will affect student and employee handbooks and.
No, we were in the process of doing this in my previous district. I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, anything that simplifies it is a win.
And streamline.
That's the goal.
I see everybody shaking their head, no, don't do it.
I do agree, I think less cumbersome, straightforward.
Yes.
Is,
Other discussion? All in favor of the motion to use policy services from Ed Council, raise your right hand. Those opposed, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
We will
Have a
leave
Merry
it with
Christmas.
Dr.
Have a safe
Medford,
trip.
Dr.
You can have it.
Robinson to get
You just keep it because it's got that link
Oh,
for
does it? Okay.
New Bloomfields if you guys want to kind of explore it out a little bit.
This part though.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, I do need that. You need to help it. Bring that back. Thank you. I need
Thank
to
you
go
for
get
your
it.
time, Susan.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your advice.
And then just my child up is grabbing from Christmas story for daycare in the morning, so.
Oh, my.
I mean, it's a
Stretch
long
the rest
day.
of the Christmas character day. I think I'm wrong about that, about.
Before we move into the rest of our agenda, if anybody would like to go, staff, Jimmy, you stay. Seriously, you all had a long day, you've got a long day tomorrow, and we understand if you want to go, we just have our business items left on our agenda, so feel free, I'm not going
Where do you want to
to
go?
go.
Come on, someone's got to be brave.
Anybody wants to.
No judgment
Have you
whatsoever.
ever seen the movie Tombstone?
Yes.
Say when.
It's like an hour past your bedtime.
Yeah, no doubt.
Thank you guys. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Physical gets up to run in about 2 hours, so.
Well, at 2:30 in the morning, so yeah, it's coming. Thank you, guys. Take care. Thanks for all you do. Have a great holiday.
Merry Christmas, thank you all.
I'll steal the church here.
Good idea. Thank you.
Every morning.
Sorry.
And he does one day where he does a big room.
You see me floating here in a minute, just come rest.
What? I don't know. I see you floating. I didn't say it was 6.
Wow. That morning that I did the radio interview before we did our mock interview, not radio interview, TV interview before we did that. So I'm at school at 4:30 waiting for the news, and there goes Joe running by the middle school with his minor cap on. And I told him he does one run when he gets up at 1:30. off, so he gets 10, 12 miles in that day or
I
whatever.
worry about his sleep.
Okay, next item of consideration is approval of resignations and or retirements.
Motion
Have
to.
the list before you, moved by Ann,
Second.
seconded by Pam. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Then we have our approval of personnel to hire. I think one of those names has been removed, is that correct?
Yes, it has.
So we
It
have
should
one
be.
individual to hire on our list there.
I want to clarify, the gentleman from the ticket, that is next year, right?
Next year, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
Kurt will finish the rest of the year, yes. Yeah, that's for next year. So we still have 2 on there, we took the 1 off, so.
Yes, oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there is 2 to hire, we did have 3, we did have 1.
Yeah, I see that.
Motion to hire.
Moved by Ann to hire.
Second.
Approved, seconded by Stacy. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Substitutes to hire, you have that list.
Motion to hire.
Moved by Ann, seconded by Pam. Discussion on that. Those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed, raise your right hand. Those abstain. Motion carries 6-4, 1 abstention. And then we have our Belcher Scholarship nominee. The Belcher Scholarship is a Missouri School Board Association, MSBA sponsored activity. It's a $1,500 scholarship.
I think that it might actually be more than that, but I think it was.
In our district? From us?
No, from.
Oh, from MSBA.
From MSBA,
Okay.
yeah. I think so. In fact, we had the state winner a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Martin. And our nominee this year is Thomas Robinson.
I would approve the nominee. Yes.
Yeah, we have,
In the future, can we have information about the student? I don't know, this is a student, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know.
Right.
I mean,
That makes sense.
obviously I would approve it, but I
So
don't know.
historically, in the past, the way this happened is we would get 5 names and we would have to discuss who we were gonna pick. And the board decided a few years ago it would be best for a name to come to us and the board approve it. And it just causes a lot less controversy.
Yeah, but we could do a bio for kind of going forward, yeah. Thomas plays, I know he does soccer, I know he does basketball, FFA, he's a good student, yeah, he's, yeah, nice kid, so, good deserving candidate, so, yeah.
I didn't catch who made the motion to approve. Jackie did, and Pam seconded. Any other discussion on the nominee? All in favor of approval, raise your right hand. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And then our athletic trainer contract.
Yeah, we did have some of the revisions in there, and I think they've added everything we'd like in there. I was ready to have that done a week ago, and then we realized that we had Cameron High School, but Plattsburgh address. So we waited again, so I don't know how that ended up happening, but.
I just have 2 quick questions
Yes.
on that. When there's a conflict in sporting events, the trainer would go to the more at-risk sport. Is that a hierarchy of sports? I mean, obviously, football might be more dangerous than tennis, but.
Yeah, we probably, football is probably one of your higher risk. Definitely soccer is another high risk that we try to have them at. I don't know that we have a hierarchy on paper.
Okay.
I mean, I know that like when we have softball going on, tennis going on, soccer or football going on, I know that we pretty much made her available if somebody was, and I know she's moved places, based on that, but we'll kind of base her at maybe the football field. But if somebody gets hit in the head with a softball or whatever, we've sent her over to that. I don't know that we have a hierarchy, but I'd say if we have a football game, we always try to have somebody, because it's usually, now in the spring, that'll switch to soccer, and so Ashley's almost always there, and, so we have baseball and other things going on, and we only have a couple home track meets, usually 1 or 2 middle school and 2 high school, but she's at all those as well, because there's usually a higher risk for something to happen in a big meet like that, so.
And if we have a student who is in a particularly precarious situation, that had repeated injury and is available to play or something, would we prioritize You see what I'm saying, rather than
I-
a sport?
Yeah, other than the sport, but a kid maybe has had 2 concussions, so
Right.
I don't know that we've necessarily got that deep
Okay,
yet.
gotcha.
No.
And then on the compensation,
Yeah,
it said something about $1,000.
it's $1,000 a month, I believe, ends up being about
Okay.
$12,000.
I was confused by the,
Which is a
the
cheap
raise,
contract.
a raise would be like $1,000. And there was something, and I can't access it because for some reason it won't let me open it.
Okay.
But I thought it was confusing about how for 2 years they could, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay, here we go, it's 2.5 compensation.
Okay.
They'll pay $14,000 per year with an increase of $1,000 per year thereafter for a maximum of $15,000 per year.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, so it's got an escalator clause on it, is all
Okay.
it really is.
So
I
that
mean,
tops out pretty quickly then.
It does, and 15,000 is still like I said, a pretty affordable.
Oh, it is?
It is.
No, I just didn't know.
Especially for the,
If you increase $1,000
I know you're not
a
arguing
year
that, but yeah.
thereafter, then essentially,
To a maximum of 15, so we're at the max.
Yeah,
right,
so
you
it's
get
just-
1 year, you get a raise.
1 year and then you're at the max. So, yeah.
Okay. No, I
It's
agree.
a pretty school-friendly contract.
I just wanted to
It
make sure.
really is, and the
Okay.
amount of time that Ashley puts in,
Yeah,
yeah, she goes way above. I mean, I know that, she's at school a lot. I mean, now we do a pretty good job of trying not to, we made that point a couple of years ago. We're not gonna pull kids out of class to do treatments and things like that, but, if the kid's in weightlifting class and needs a treatment, she's there. She's there all the time, and then I haven't been to a basketball game yet, or a wrestling meet, or definitely not a football game or anything else where you're not gonna see her there, so. And if she's not, that's the other thing, Rich is always there
Yeah.
too, so.
Move to approve the athletic trainer contract.
second.
Moved by Jackie, seconded by Ann, to approve the athletic trainer contract. Discussion. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimously. Audit FY '22.
Yeah, seems like this is becoming a common occurrence, but our audit in December again. And like I said, that is no fault of our own. I know that Chastity's back there, and I know how hard Chastity and Kelly and Becky and all of us work to try to get the audit complete and done. And we actually started that process a little bit in May and do some pre-stuff. We had the auditors come in July, and they came back, and a lot of that just we cannot get done without getting the FER stuff done, which is DESI, that we have no control over. And then this year we struggled with the last FER, getting the numbers that Kelly had put in to transfer to DESI. They weren't transferring correctly, so they weren't getting the same numbers that we showed. So we struggled with part of that, and unfortunately, that's not a fault of ours. We get documentation from DESI. In fact, we made them document that was not our problem. That was their problem. But we do an audit every year, regardless. I think actually in the state of Missouri, you don't have to do one every 2 years, but I think it's important to show that transparency. We have an audit done every year. Unfortunately, I would say the only thing I get a little frustrated with when it comes to audit is it doesn't matter where I've been, what year it is. This is year 15 as a superintendent, and we'll be wrote up again for segregation of duties. I've never not been wrote up for segregation of duties. I was going to say, we're looking at actually, possibly hiring somebody, another one, and we'll still have segregation of duties because they'll want to know who watches that person. But to me, that's minor. I feel like we do an incredible job. And I think if you got a chance to read the audit report, I don't think there's anything alarming in there whatsoever. I think our finances are in great shape. I feel very comfortable with what Chastity does. And that's a huge part of Chastity's job is to conduct this audit and to have all that information ready. And she's very prepared on that. So.
And on the segregation of duties, you have dual checks and balances. It's just
we have all types of checks and balances.
Right. It's not that we don't have segregation.
Yeah.
We don't have over segregation.
Exactly. I mean, we don't cut a check without Becky telling Chastity how to cut the
Two
check.
people see it.
Chastity doesn't put that check in until Becky checks that against the PO for the requisition, and then even the whole process of, when a teacher requests an item, that goes to a principal. The principal checks it, codes it, that goes to me. I approve it, code it, that goes to Becky. I mean, we've got a whole series of processes that are a part of it. Unfortunately, there's just always going to be somebody that they want to see doing something else, and it's almost impossible, like I said, to not have it. And I'm not making excuses because I just kind of.
Well, I was just trying to point out that you do have multiple checks all the way through.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, all of them. We always have types of checks and balances, and the two ladies could add anything to this. But I feel very comfortable where we're at in the audit. I wish we were getting it sooner than December because we have turnaround tomorrow. We have to have everything to DESE by the 31st, so Kelly's going to get the minutes done and send this and the audit and all that to them. And then for our bonding companies, we have to have our audit. That has to be in so we can maintain our bond status. And so, and again, this isn't even the bond, this isn't even our audit company, which we usually have a pretty good relationship with. It's just DESE right now has slowed us down so much.
And the payroll reporting finding was a DESE. That was is that?
Our payroll is accurate. The problem that we have a discrepancy in is the benefits. Am I correct?
The GASB.
And the GASB,
So I'm
yes.
reconciling against the PSRS and peers.
Yeah.
And so it's in the numbers. It's all reconciled 941s to our payroll. It's when we go look at deductions, pre-tax, post-tax, and all of that, and reconciling that. It's within variance, if that makes sense. It's not to the penny.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And
But the
I
941
got
is accurate.
Oh, yeah.
So
941 is
that's
accurate.
the
And her
IRS.
wording does seem weird, but the way she words that is because our 941s come into the GASB, if that makes sense. So they have to come into the GASB, and then we have to fill out, it's a 10-page form and lots of numbers, and she and I, we've worked night and day on it. To the point where
we're off, I think, in that $20 million budget, $7,500. So it's negligent. And I think we actually show less than the auditor says.
Oh, yeah,
we
they
have.
say we have more.
They say we have $7,500 more than we have.
In our
I think we should get that much.
$7,500 and $20 million revenue and expenditures. That was from the school book. Yeah. Start that rumor.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There you go.
Exactly. No,
Thanks
so
for
I
your
feel very
capacity
confident
and
with that.
ability.
They do a tremendous job.
Yes.
So.
Okay, any other questions on the audit?
It's really a good report.
Yes, I've looked at it.
And, in our opinion, we're within, in all material respect, there's nothing in here to pick on, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's a.
no, I feel very confident, like I said, and I think that's one of those things I know our people worry about, and I'm glad they do, but at the same time, because they do, and they take it so seriously, that we have a clean audit, and that they make me look good, and and that's the job of everybody here. All right, just a little bit.
John, well.
Okay.
How long have we used this company?
Clevenger, Chastity, how many years have we used Clevenger? Is this our third?
So I'm 4, so did you have them 1 year before?
We might have had it. So this might be the 5th year. Before that, we used Westbrook. And I thought it was just kind of time for a change. I think sometimes you need to have a different auditor come in and look at your stuff. And so we did. And we've had, it's been a good relationship with Clevenger.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, I think they've changed a couple things, and I think it's actually, this is probably the easiest year we have with them.
Good.
Motion to approve. Jackie moved. Stacy seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the FY '22 audit, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Playground for Cameron Greenbush Co-op.
Yeah, so we had an opportunity, and actually, Mary, I'd like to give her a little credit. I know she's not here right now, but she applied for kind of grant and some money through DESI, so we were able to get almost $90,000 for some guys, an early childhood playground. So Mary and Angie and myself have kind of looked at a couple different locations over at Parkview, where we would kind of put maybe an early childhood kind of close to the playground, and kind of a little different because we have some kids that are having, they have latex allergies, different things like that, and we've got all this rubber and all these things. So it would be a little bit different in the sense it's going to be more of like a carpeted, kind of like the Big Vickers one that's in Recreation Park. So more of a turf type thing like that. But anyways, yeah, we had almost $90,000, so we've been working with the company AFCO, which we've done some, in fact, we might have did CIS's playground with AFCO, and we've had a lot of success with that playground. And we actually went through a co-op, Greenbush Co-op, and that's pretty common for playgrounds, because you can't, it's very hard to bid an apples to apples playground, because everybody has different equipment and nobody has, there's not really a standard. You say slide, but everybody's going to have a different slide. So most of those, there's co-ops out there, there's TIPS, there's Greenbush, there's all types of different co-ops that these companies put their prices in, and then that's the best bid. And so that we've done it before. We did it with actually our track years ago, and so that's what I'm recommending is that we go with this Greenbush Co-op, which is AFCO, for the bid.
Now,
and
like over near Parkview, do the Parkview students have access to it?
It should be right off of the building at Parkview.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're trying to get as close to the building as possible so that we can kind of just take the kids out and have them right there. And we're hoping to be able to put it where we can kind of expand it, down the road. Unfortunately, $90,000 sounds like a lot, but with playground equipment, it might be one or two pieces. It's not very much. Yeah, playground equipment is expensive. Very expensive.
Have we done, can we supplement that some and do a little more?
We might be able to. We've looked at what we can do for more there. We are looking at using possibly some of our SR3 money to put some more playground equipment at Parkview. We've got our main side on the east side of the playground there. We've talked about maybe putting something on the west side over there if we can use some of our SR monies on some of those things. Yeah, that's where we're, so.
Maybe a pickleball court, get those kids learning early.
And hopefully here pretty quick, I should be able to bring back some, I know we're not on that right now, but the tennis court bids. I know one of the companies we talked about, we've talked to in the last month. One of them, we can easily paint pickleball lines on and do some of that, which I think would be great for the community and let them use our facilities and everything else. I think the hard part might be actually keeping them off 1.5 recess. So
Mary Crawford wrote the grant.
Yeah, wrote the grant and applied for it and got the money. So
Motion to approve that bid.
Second by Ann, seconded by Jackie. Discussion? All in favor of approving playground equipment? Raise your right hand. Those opposed, motion carries unanimous. You want to call you did. Okay, that concludes the items for consideration. Board member comments.
I have just one. I know it's been a late night, and I normally wouldn't say anything, but because last week in the newspaper it was reported, it said Cameron R1 School District Board of Trustees Stacy Early. I figured I needed to make a comment in the school board meeting. The newspaper said that I had made a request to the city of Cameron to change their colors from blue and yellow to black and gold to increase school spirit. I just wanted to make it clear to all of you that in no way have I made such a request, and definitely would never make a request of any kind using my board member title. The fact of the matter is I've never even had a conversation with the city manager. So I don't know why he decided to use my name in a city council meeting. I don't know why the newspaper
I can speak on this.
reported without calling me to verify or to comment on such a topic. Do I think that the city should change? Absolutely. I think I would be in huge favor of us being one Cameron of Black and Gold. I'm a big proponent of school spirit. You all know that. We've talked about this even already tonight. High-spirited students are in school more. They have higher test scores. They make better leaders. And so I'm always in favor of that. So yeah, I would be in huge favor of those conversations to continue, but I have not had those conversations yet. So I just wanted to verify for you all that is where I have been, or where I stand.
Jimmy, do you have a comment?
Yes, that conversation is actually quite audible in the city council meeting that was had by Tim Wimes. Had you had a conversation with Tim Wimes at all?
No, that's
Then
why
would he say anything? I mean, you can listen to the meeting. It's actually during the city manager's report, if you want to be very specific about when they mentioned your name. So I'm as shocked as anybody else.
Jimmy, I just said, I don't know why the city manager chose to use my name when I have never had a conversation.
The city manager didn't use your name. Tim Wimes used your name, and he's the community development director.
Okay,
so
and I haven't had a conversation with him either, and if you would have, I'm not going to argue with you, but if all it took was for you to contact me to get clarification or verification since you were printing my name and using my title as a school board member. So
you were mentioned as a school board member during a public meeting. You were a public official. If you would like me to call you on a short week because we had to print early that week, more power to you.
Well,
but
you haven't returned a phone call either.
I'm a very busy man.
Okay, so we'll move along. I think, Stacy, thank you for clarifying that for the board. I know we appreciate that. And I knew when I read that Stacy would do something in a board capacity without saying to the board, this is what I'm doing. So appreciate those comments. Thank you. I do have two things, very briefly. If you all look at your mayor membership newsletter that you get, I hope in the most recent one, they had a petition that they were asking school boards to sign. Matt printed it. We have some, has anybody besides me looked at that? Probably not. Okay. So we have some time. We don't have to do it tonight, do we, Matt?
No.
Here's the petition, talking points for a resolution to oppose open enrollment, and then they're asking boards to sign, which I wholeheartedly support, but we don't need to take action tonight. I'm just asking you to, if you still have that email from Mayor that explains it, between now and the January meeting, we'll put that on our agenda for discussion at the January meeting for a petition on open enrollment with Mayor. I think we do need to bring that up and support that. The other thing is that I have talked with Matt about this, and I was asked if we're having to modify our transportation because of not enough bus drivers or other issues relating to bus. Is our contract being lowered because of services? So I asked Matt to explain that to me.
Yeah.
To these guys like he did to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically our contract's not being modified because when we double route, we're still having to pay for the same mileage, we're still having to pay for a driver to run that second route. Now, what we have started doing is, and I started doing this last year, and actually they were in total agreement and they were fine with it, which I was glad that they didn't even balk at all. But when we had to have a bus stay late and I had to have staff stay over, we charge the bus barn and we take that back off of our bill. If I have to have, a couple first grade teachers and whoever stay to watch the kids while we're waiting, then we pay our staff because I don't want them to stay after without having to do it. And then I take that money and I take it back off the bill for Durham when I'm paying them down the road. So in one sense, yes, I'm still getting charged my same routes, but I am charging what it cost me to keep staff after school. And we did that all last year, and it worked out really, really well, and we had to do it a lot last year. I mean, I think it was almost daily. We were holding 9 or 19, or I don't even remember. I think it was one of those two. And I don't know that this year we've held probably 10
Oh, wow.
I don't even know if we, I don't even know that we've held 10 times this year where we've had to do that, so. But I felt like if we were gonna have to keep our teachers and make them stay to watch kids, which I can't have kids just going all over and having just principals try to watch that, that we needed to do something, and like I said, and Durham worked with us great on that. I mean, they understand, we're all trying to work together. I mean, we're all stuck trying to find people, and, I can't blame them because I can't always find people, so.
Do we get a reduction when we have a coach driving a bus to an event?
We don't get a reduction, but the bonus for our coaches is they get paid. I mean, so,
So Durham pays them.
So Durham pays them. So I've worked in previous districts where like we own the buses. So a coach driving would be considered double dipping because you're getting paid to go. But for our coaches, they're getting paid to do the coaching part, but Durham's paying to do the driving part.
Okay.
So, for some of our coaches, that it's a bonus. I mean, I hate to say a bonus because
They just get to talk to themselves on the way home.
Huh?
They get to talk to themselves on the way right
Usually nobody does, yeah. But yeah, like for some of our coaches, Christy McIntosh, Phil Clem, Derek Lanigan. I'm trying to think who else. I thought we had somebody on baseball.
Tennis coach drives.
Richard
She did. The girl.
Oh, Morgan.
Morgan.
She drove a van.
Yeah, the van, anybody can drive. Now, we make everybody do get a chauffeur's license to drive the van, a Class E license if they're gonna do that, which we pay for. We encourage our coaches to do that, so, because they can actually consider that a school bus, but we get by with the chauffeur's license. But, yeah, for a school like us that's contracting, like I said, for some of those coaches, it's,
So when Morgan would drive the tennis van, then she would not get that?
We offered a little stipend to some of those people, a small stipend, I don't know, $15, $20 when they had to drive the van, like that, but we don't offer them, a big stipend. Yeah.
Okay. Clarifies that bus contract.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other board member comments? Okay, then, we'll entertain a motion that we go back into closed session pursuant to section 16021, subsection 3.
So moved.
Moved by